All right, hello ATM. This is going to be a lesson on 410, the group portion. If you want to follow along, we are starting on page 594 in your textbook. That's where you'll find the problems for today. I'll let you read the first two paragraphs on your own, but this lesson is just a really good group of problems to help you understand more real-life situations, considering revenue, profit, and price of an item. And it involves quadratic formula as well. So we go back to the previous lesson, I think it was 4.9, where we were talking about the price of bath beads, okay? They give us lowercase p, this is the price of how much they should sell the bath beads for. The revenue is how much money they make on the bath beads, but the profit is factoring in the cost as well of how much they have to pay to keep their business running and to manufacture the bath beads. Do you think the same number of items would make both the revenue and profit have output 0? That's kind of a weird question, in my opinion, to ask, but if you think about it, they're wanting to know if you were to solve the revenue equation, if you were to put 0 in for R and solve for X, and then do the same thing for the profit equation, put 0 in for capital P and solve for X, do you think you would get the same answers? It says don't use the formulas. Think about what revenue and profit mean. Okay, I already wrote my answer here because I didn't want to take too much time writing it, so pause the video and copy it down if you need to. I put no. If revenue is 0, then profit will actually be negative because they still have to pay fixed costs, okay? If they're not getting any money coming in from these bath beads, then they're definitely not going to have any profit at all. So hopefully that makes sense. So I just put they would not both be 0 for the same number of items, okay? Moving on. All right, number 2 says use the quadratic formula to find the zeros of the revenue and profit functions and discuss whether what you find matches your thoughts in question number 1. So I put a line down my paper because we're going to have to basically do the same work for the 2 different functions. So here's our revenue function that they gave us in the opening paragraph, and here's the profit function that they gave us as well. So we're going to use the quadratic formula and we're going to solve for X, considering if we put 0 in for R and 0 in for P, okay? So remember, for quadratic formula, your very first step should always be to calculate the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, okay? Now be careful, I'm going to put a plus 0 here at the end. That part is technically your C value. So sometimes there is no C value, so you have to just substitute a 0 in for it. So I have 22 squared, that's my B, minus 4 times my A value times my C value. This whole section cancels out because of that 0. So really it's just 22 squared, which is 484. Now that goes under the square root. So when I go into the quadratic formula, I have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of 484 all over 2 times my a. Okay, and now I go to the calculator and I plug both of those scenarios in, okay? All right, so I'm gonna open parentheses here, negative 22 plus the square root of 484. I'm going to get out of my square root and I'm going to close the parenthesis. Divided by, I'm going to open another parenthesis and do 2 times negative 0.025. And that gets me 0. Okay? I'm going to go back and change the plus sign to a minus. And that gets me 880. Okay? All right, let's do the same thing for capital P, which is profit. So again, I start with b squared minus 4ac, so b is 18.5 minus 4 times my a value times my c value, and I get 309.75. So then I go into the formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of the number we just found, all over 2 times my a value. Okay. Let's plug that into the calculator. Open parentheses, negative 18.5 plus square root of 309.75. Get out of the square root, close the parentheses, divided by, open a new square root, times negative 0.025, close square root. And the one answer I get, I'll just say 18, because I get 18.005, etc. So I'll just say 18. Now I'm going to go back and change that plus sign to a minus. And I get 722, I guess, if I round up, approximately 722. Now, you can see that if we solved the revenue equation, if the revenue is 0, it would take 880 items, okay? If the profit was 0, it would take 18 items and 722 items. So the fact that these answers are different confirms our hypothesis from number 1 that they would not be the same, okay? It would take a different number of items for the revenue to be 0 versus the profit to be 0, okay? Let's move on. All right, number 3, it says, do you think the number of units that provides the most revenue is the same as the number of units that provides the most profit? Again, this isn't based on formulas. Think about the situation, okay? Well, if we're talking about revenue versus profit, they're probably not going to be the same again, because profit is revenue minus cost. Revenue and profit are not the same thing. Profit calculates cost into it, so they're probably not going to be the same again, but number 4 has us check. So number 4 says find the number of units that provides the maximum revenue and the maximum profit to discuss whether what you found matches your thoughts in question 3. Well, you guys, we've got some key words here. Anytime they talk about maximum, they're talking about the vertex. Anytime you see maximum, or actually it's minimum as well, they're talking about the vertex. So they ultimately want us to find the vertex here. Referencing the last video that I made, we have a formula for that. It's x equals negative b over 2a. So here's our revenue profit. I'm going to go ahead and find the vertex, the x value anyway. And I'm going to say x equals negative 22 divided by 2 times my a value. Type that in the calculator. Careful when you're plugging this one in, because you want to divide and then open a new set of parentheses, 2 times negative 0.025. You want to divide by everything in the denominator, so I used an extra set of parentheses there. And I get 440. Okay. Keep that number handy because we will need it for a future problem. I'm going to do the same thing for the profit equation. So negative b all over 2 times a. Okay, let's type that into the calculator. Again, make sure you're using extra parentheses in that denominator to make sure that everything's divided, and we get 370. Okay, so the maximum revenue occurs when they sell 440 containers of bath beads. The maximum profit occurs when they sell 370 containers of bath beads. So because they're different, this confirms our hypothesis from number 3 that they would not be the same. Okay, these numbers I want to keep handy, but let's move on to 5, 6, and 7. Okay, number 5, it says find the exact maximum profit that the boutique can make from these bath beads. I wrote the profit equation off to the side. I also wrote the price equation because they both have P's, and so it's very confusing. The textbook uses capital P for the profit and a lowercase p for the price, and it can be very confusing, and you could easily get them mixed up. So I wrote them off to the side to reference them. So if it wants me to find the actual profit for the maximum profit, I have to go back to what we found over here. We found that they would get the maximum profit if they sold 370 containers of bath beads. So now they want me to find, if they sell 370 containers of bath beads, how much do they actually make? So then that means I have to take 370 and put it in for X into the profit equation. And that will tell me how much money they've actually made. Okay, lots of writing here. Now we just type it in. Okay, and I get $3,097.50. Okay, hopefully you got the same thing. Now it says, what should they charge for each jar to make the most profit? Well, we're still talking about the maximum profit, right? Okay, but this time they're wanting to know how much should they charge. That is the price equation. What should the price tag say on the bath bead container? So now we're going to take the 370 and plug it in for X for the price equation. So it looks like this. Okay, now plug it into the calculator. And we get $12.75. So in order to make the maximum profit, they should sell their bath bead jars at $12.75, and that's the most money that they will make off of those bath beads, okay? Now it says, what price provides the largest revenue, okay? So now we have to think about, in number 4, they were having us find the maximum revenue. So now we're going to be using X equals 440, okay? And they want us to figure out the price. So we're going to be using the price equation, but instead of using 370, we're going to use the maximum revenue amount, which is 440. So make sure you're reading carefully all these key words here in the problem. So negative 0.025, but this time times 440. Oh, and I think I may have put an extra X there. Let me double check. Yep, my apologies. There's an extra X over here in my price equation. Good thing I didn't use it over here. All right, I'm gonna plug that into the calculator now. $11. So for the maximum revenue, not profit, but maximum revenue, they would have to sell their bath bead jars for $11 each. Okay. All right, well that is 410 group. Hopefully you guys have a good understanding of revenue and profit and price, and being able to utilize the quadratic formula to help you find all the different pieces that they're asking you to find. If you have any questions, you know what to do. Email me or comment on Google Classroom. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.